right, I am here with new friend. Kind of funny how I've been meeting people these days. So this is J.D. Marcum. He spent 8 years in the Navy as a hospital corpsman. He is also the owner of Florence Strength and Conditioning, which is out on Weaver Road in Florence. And another big thing about J.D. is a cancer survivor. So I am really happy to have you on here today.
Happy to be
kind
here.
of met through a mutual friend.
Yeah.
Was working out, and he knew what I was up to, and he knew what you've been up to. He made the introduction, and here we are. Just kind of want to hear your story.
Well, I'm happy to be here, and thanks for having me. After I got out of the service, I ended up in Wisconsin, going to school, studying biology. Was going to be a doctor, or probably going to be a PA. My mother was diagnosed with a terminal illness in 2003, so I moved back. Living in Wisconsin and then being in the service, then getting out, everything has cheese in Wisconsin, so I left my military size, had a lot of Leinenkugels and cheese, and ended up moving back here in August of '03 at like 270 pounds. After not working out for a couple of years.
So this was 8 years in the Navy, so in great shape, and then you got
get out, go to school, because you know how that is when you go to school, you're just going to class and whatever. So
a lot of free time.
And nobody's making me work out, and like I said, the aforementioned cheese and everything. So I got out of shape, and I was smoking, and I was drinking, and self-medicating. But then mom gets sick, and that was kind of like the country record year of my life. My first wife and I, we divorced. I lost both boxers within like 45 days of each other. So I lost my dogs, lost my wife. Mom gets sick. If I had a truck, it would have broke down.
You got hit by a train.
Yeah, So I just said, you know what? I'm going to move back here and take care of my mom. And I left Wisconsin, moved back to Cincinnati, and like August of 2005, I was here. And by January of 2005, she had passed. Now, me being the combat medic, the corpsman, I don't get triggered by much, but like if somebody gets hurt, I need to go to work, right? Mm-hmm. And so I couldn't affect change with my mother. She had a version of cirrhosis that wasn't related to drinking, and she didn't take care of herself. And about 5 or so months after she passed, I was out front. I lived in Inwood Park up in Mount Auburn, and I thought I had a heart attack that morning, and it wasn't. It was probably mom kicking me in the chest. But I went to the VA and got it all checked out, and they were like, well, we're going to put you on this medicine and this medicine and this medicine and this medicine.
How long after your mom passed did this happen?
Like 5.5 months.
Okay.
So she died in January of '05, and this is probably like the late part of June or July, right? And I wasn't working, and I was kind of a hot mess, and was the executor of her estate and handling all that stuff, and just have all your ducks in a row, because that's a terrible, terrible ordeal if you don't. Dealing with the state and it's just terrible. So when the VA was like, hey, we want to put you on these medicines, and I'm like, well, I'm already on 3. I don't want to be on all these pills. So I declined. I said, thank you, but informed consent, I'm good. And then I went and I joined, there was a gym up in Clifton called the Friars Club. It was right around the corner from where I stayed. And you know where the Mad Frog is up in Clifton? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I was literally right around the corner, right? And so I joined the Friars Club. I stroked a check for like $360, and that was a year. And I went to start working out. Shortly thereafter, my father had been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. He was a drinker, loved his Jack Daniels, and I was down visiting him, and my stepmother is kind of an owl educator. There were all these books on type 2 diabetes and nutrition and how to eat for type 2 diabetes, and I was just leafing through one of them, and I'm like, oh, insulin control. I gotta change how I eat, because I'd been working out and I was getting stronger, but when I laid my mom to rest, it was a 52 or a 50, it was a 50-inch waist, right? This huge old coat. And I wasn't healthy. And I mean, at that point, it was Maker's Mark every day and Budweiser, and I was smoking weed every day. And I was just in a really bad physical, mental place. And so once I was like, okay, I have to educate myself on how to eat. So I came back home and just started educating myself on food and nutrition and how your body uses food. And there's been several chapters or seasons of nutrition in my life.
How old were you at this point?
Wow, 35, 30, yeah, 35.
Okay.
Yeah, 34, 35. And, you know, my father and I, we didn't have a great relationship growing up, but after Mom died and I started working out, he and we started to develop a friendship. Now, my father, he's a Vietnam era veteran. He officiated high school and basketball and football for 25 years. West Virginia, they put him in the Hall of Fame, right? Gave him an honor, and I was there. He was fighting cancer at that time, but so at that point he hadn't been diagnosed with cancer. But we developed a friendship as adults, as adult men, and then shortly thereafter he was diagnosed with kidney cancer, and so they did the nephrectomy, and everything was fine for about 4 or 5, 6 months, and then it just blossomed all over his body. 30 osseous lesions. When he passed, he was taking 300 milligrams of oral morphine a day, and you could still hear the pain in his voice. I had to pull the plug on my mom, and he went unconscious, and the last thing I got from him was a hand squeeze. I made it to hospice in time for him to recognize and give me a hand squeeze, and that was it. So at that point, I had gone from my 320-pound self with Mom back to 195 pounds when Dad died, right? I was back to my military size.
What was the time frame in between that?
Oh, like a year and a half. It was 05. Well, so 05, I started my workout thing, getting back into fitness like the summer of 05. Didn't really start making progress until 06, and then from 06 until about a little bit into 08 was when I got back. And I was there, you know, I went from a 49 waist to, you know, thank God for Dillard's half off, the 75% off, the 75% off rack, right? And back down to a 34. But I was running, I was eating 5, 6, 7 times a day with protein shakes and water. I was training every day. Me and my dog, Rocky, my boxer, we were running several times a week. And I had my life kind of situated and orchestrated that I could prioritize my fitness. Quit smoking. Well, I was working at Mount Adams Pavilion as a bouncer on the weekends. That was kind of my social gig, right? More like people watching. But I would have an occasional cigarette at the end of break, you know, or we'd get done and we'd clear out the bar or whatever, and we'd have free beer, and I'd have a couple of cigarettes. Kind of like being out in the field. And it's in this part that I started being dissatisfied with what I was doing. I was selling cell phones at that point for wireless living. But I was in management and had some responsibility, and then I got more responsibility and a couple of more stores. But I was very dissatisfied with corporatism. And my friends started asking me questions about fitness. And that's when I started thinking about, can I do this for a living? And then, 2010, I decided to leave the company that I was with. I got tired of the promises, the false promises. And Dad was bad. And I think the only reason that I was keeping a job to make a fair amount of money is because I wanted to please him, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And, but we had a conversation, and he's like, I just want you to be happy. I'm like, well, okay. So I got a job with Urban Active. I had sales management experience, and I didn't have a certification. I had a whole bunch of knowledge, but I didn't have that little piece of paper. So I got a job as the sales training manager, and I started the Skytop. I started out the Skytop gym over by Lunkin. And great little gym, like 24,000 square feet, cool little community. And then I started working professionally in the field. Got my certification, moved to, did such a wonderful job there that they moved me to Hyde Park quickly, turned that gym around in like 6 months. They had started to open, they were starting the opening process or the building process of the Kenwood location. And the plan was after first quarter that I was going to leave Hyde Park and go to Kenwood. Well, the last night of third quarter, my stepmother calls me or my dad calls me and says that he's got a bad headache. And we talk multiple times a week, and I'm like, well, bub, you know, just take some medicine, go lay down. I'll call you tomorrow. We come in the next morning, it's the end of the quarter, numbers wrap up, regionals there, my all the uppity ups are there, and Cindy calls me. Dad didn't wake up. So I like, guys, I gotta go. Like, my pops is not responsive. And he was a pretty robust guy. He was probably 175 pounds most of his life, and he was like 95 pounds when we put him in a casket. You know, his bone cancer just ate him up. And
It's hard to watch, especially your dad.
It's,
I would think.
It's can't do nothing. Can't do nothing. Just why it's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
And all of this is in preparation for something. And when he died, there was just this thing inside me that said, I don't want to be a part of. The problem I had with selling the training is it wasn't the training that I would prescribe.
Yeah.
Right. I know these. There's things that I know that I don't know how I know them, and we all have stuff like that in our life, right? So when I came back from laying my father to rest, I was literally driving home from West Virginia with my boss, and I said, I don't want to be a manager anymore. Like, I don't want to be in sales anymore. Like, I want to be a trainer. I want to be back on the ground with the grunts, with the people, and I want to be doing work there. As it just so happened, there was a gentleman who was in that very same role that wanted to do the same, what I was doing. So we just flipped. Right? And when you think that you have a plan, so I became the quality assurance head trainer at the Florence Urban Active. Went from like 0 clients to like 170 clients, like that, because I was doing stuff that the trainers weren't doing. I got bit by CrossFit like in 2009, so I was incorporating those things and educating myself on that. And I don't think that CrossFit's bad. I think that if it's properly utilized and prescribed and monitored, I think it's tremendous. But that's how I met my first business partner. That's how I met Brian Frazier. And so if, like, you know, Patrick, you sign up in my book and we block out an hour, I'm not just going to take somebody that I don't know and we're going to go work out. I don't know anything about you. We're going to sit down for an hour, we're going to talk, and I want to know about you. And I want to know what your goals are, and I want to know what stuff has happened and why we're doing it, right? Mm-hmm. I want to know the why. And so Brian signed up in my book and waited several months. And then finally we're sitting down face to face like this. And he says, now before we get started, I need to let you know I'm HIV positive. And I said, okay, I'm a Presbyterian, right? I mean, it's how do you respond to that, right?
Right.
So I said, you know, I don't, whatever, man, it doesn't bother me. I don't care. Like, what concerns me is that you're not well, and I believe that with the right prescription of exercise and diet, we can halt, definitely slow down disease processes, because I've seen it with other clients. Like, you know, I've taken 40-year-old, 50-year-old men off of cholesterol and hypertension medicine. So that's a disease process that we stopped with exercise and diet. You got to make some sacrifices in your lifestyle, but if you do that, the body knows how to heal itself. Mm-hmm. So we worked really hard, and he hated every minute of it. And I was very much a drill sergeant for my clients. Sorry, you signed up for it.
Yeah.
And but after like 4 years of really hard work, he's in remission, and he's in remission to this day.
That is
right?
awesome.
So it's during Urban Active, the Urban Active chapter of the life, that I start thinking about my own CrossFit facility, my own gym. There were certain limitations that commercial gyms have with how you can train and how you can't train. Like, they didn't take too kindly to me putting a climbing rope inside the gym. People didn't really understand why I was doing a barbell Turkish get-up in the middle of the way that gym was set up is this big fishbowl, and like, so I'd set up in the middle of the gym and just do crazy workouts, and people were like, what's that work? I'm like, everything. So I pitched my idea to Brian, and he loved it. And so we became the third CrossFit gym in Northern Kentucky. We were CrossFit Y'all. That just sounded appropriate.
Yeah.
And because, you know, CrossFit kind of comes off as being very intimidating. I don't know how to do all that stuff. Well, it's just CrossFit, y'all. It's no big deal.
Yeah.
Play the Kentucky, you know, put a little slang on it and country dumb it a little bit, and but really it's just changing diet, intense exercise, the way your body's supposed to work. Because when life asks you to do things, it doesn't say, hey, can you kind of do this for me? It says, hurry up, do it right now, right? And so we started to grow our facility, and Brian, I was the COO, I was the operations guy, and Brian was the executive. I don't know if you've been through a divorce process, or if you know people that, yeah, so
sure
your credit kind of goes through the wood chipper a little bit. And so I also hadn't made the greatest financial choices as a single guy. I'm sure that's never happened to anybody. So we built the business on like $17,500, and I put a lot of sweat equity into it. And so he would travel with his job, and he had the opportunity to go and get all these certifications through CrossFit. And I would go as I could, but he had amassed like just about every cert they had, and I was limited to the certs that they offered here in Cincinnati or within like an hour drive. He went to the powerlifting cert first, and at that time, Laura Phelps Sweat and her now ex-husband Shane, they were the main educators, the main teachers, or the instructors of that course. And it was designed by Louis Simmons. Louis, the mastermind behind Westside Barbell out of Columbus, which was the strongest gym in the United States, and over 200 world records in the sport of powerlifting.
Wow.
When Louis was 62, he squatted 920 pounds. Yeah. So really strong old man, one of the smartest guys I've ever had the opportunity to talk with, one of the craziest people I've ever met. But you know, there's a little bit of crazy with genius, and
Sure.
little bit of brave with crazy, and but he loved strength, and my life has shown me that you have to be strong. Stuff's going to get thrown at you. It's going to get dumped on your back. You need strength. Your physical strength will give you a level of health that builds your mental strength. But both of those strengths, they pour into your spiritual strength as well. And you can't have one without, you can't have them. You need all three of them, and they need to be balanced. And so Brian loved the powerlifting stuff. He's like, all of the other CrossFit gyms, they all have like an Olympic weightlifting component to that's their barbell club, right? And it ties into their methodology, the Olympic clean, the clean and jerk and the snatch, right? That you see in the Olympics.
Yep.
Those are movements that you are taught when you do CrossFit. We decided to have some market differentiation, so we developed a powerlifting barbell club. And we ended up producing some really strong athletes. The science is what got me. This is all based off of 40 years of exercise science. And the issue that I have with high-speed interval training is, okay, so like, you're now in a mature chapter of your life. Your joints are not what they once
used to be.
Yeah, right. Your body's a little different, and so I was seeing a very large amount of soft tissue injury from overuse, and there's only so many exercises I can program into a 15 or a 20-minute WOD or the workout for the week. So you're going to have hinges and you're going to have pressing movements overhead, but the squat, the kettlebell swing, that's a hinge. Running, you're hinging. It's either a bench press or an overhead press. So any combination of that with minimal rest, and people's lives are what they are. We don't have enough time to rest. We try to put way too much stuff on our plate. Our recovery practices aren't nearly what they need to be. I mean, how often do you stretch? Right? How did you eat the right amount of calories that day, or did life get in the way and you had to go do all of these things, and I got to eat, right? So my premise was, how can I fix this? How can I reduce the soft tissue injury? Well, making the tissue stronger fixed it. It made some people upset.
The soft tissue injuries, kind of what are you talking about
like
there?
Biceps tendonitis, or like, you do a little bench press and maybe you got some pain here in the deltoid, or you're getting some radiating pain down the arm, right? That's all biceps tendonitis, but that's also from being here all day, being in a slumped position.
Is that related to inflammation?
Yes.
That is all going hand in hand, right?
So you get soft tissue injury that comes from inflammation, which comes from joints being out of position. Those two things together will lead to joint failure. So you'll get rotator, like if shoulders are inflamed, bicep tendon is shortened, the shoulders are out of position eventually. That's going to be a rotator cuff injury, right? We sit a lot, right? If we don't stretch out our hips, eventually that's going to be a labral tear in the hip, or that's going to be a bulging disc in the back, right? The body's a wonderfully made machine of balanced levers. But just like we do all the maintenance on our car, rotate the tires, timing chain, whatever, like we do have to do maintenance to our body, which is mobility work and sleep and hydration and nutrition. And if you can nail the recovery piece, you can train forever. But you have to nail the recovery. You have to learn how to recover to train. And unfortunately,
you don't hear a lot about.
No,
you
we
hear
don't.
about this new workout and do this and
Right.
do that, but nobody really talks recovery.
Right, nobody does, right? And then if you go talk to your doctor, they don't know anything about recovery.
No.
They don't know anything about nutrition. And I'm not down in docs, not at all. But they're only given this much education about nutrition. Oh, you need to lose 20 pounds? Go on a 400 calorie a day diet. Okay. So, and we had a lot of success helping people lose weight. And like I had one woman that came in and she was a 12, 14, depending on where she went and bought clothing, right? And when we were done, she was a 4'6", and she
Felt amazing.
Yeah, and she quit drinking, right?
That'll change some things.
Yes, it will, right? And that was probably the first significant helping someone get off the addiction. But there's workout addiction, right? There's food addiction.
We're all addicted to something in some way, shape, or form.
And it's all like we're on that dopamine cycle.
Yep.
Right?
Well, that's it. We're all addicted to dopamine.
Yes, we are.
Whatever we do to get it, it's the little fix of dopamine.
That's it right there, right? So me too, like I was a big pot smoker. Huge. Like more than I probably should have. I never really enjoyed drinking because of the visions of my father, drinking and losing his temper, and I inherited some of that behavior too. Like if somebody slighted me, or they did something that I thought slighted my wife, like I didn't go scorched earth. Like I blew up the bridge and the parts of the hill on both sides of the bridge. Like,
Yeah.
But as I dove into powerlifting, like I did this pretty well. I was an okay runner.
Yeah, running's not fun.
Short.
He didn't get the running leg.
No, I mean I could do probably a 9-minute, 8.5-minute mile pretty consistently, but I wasn't like fast.
Yeah.
I could motor, like I could go, but I wasn't. Who's the Olympic sprinter? I just wasn't fast.
Bolt?
Yeah, I'm not Usain Bolt, not at all. But when I did my first powerlifting meet in 2014, man,
That felt right.
that was like, I'm going to do this. So I poured myself into that and did a whole bunch of meets. Been on the platform a number of times, and I'm no pro, and I'm certainly nobody in the sport.
So how old were you when you started the powerlifting? So you weren't.
Let's see, 14. That's like 42,
9 years ago?
whatever 14 was. 2014 was my first meet, so yeah, 9 years ago. And so, we change location a couple of times and we grow very organically. We go from a 700 square foot space to a 3,000 square foot space to a 5,000 square foot space, all kinds of equipment, set it up to be just the strength mecca of Northern Kentucky, right? I've got all of the stuff, all the bars, all the equipment that you could possibly want to be as strong as you could possibly make yourself. And March of 2018, I do a meet in Winchester, Kentucky. That's where I achieved my master's elite total. I squatted 722 pounds. I benched 501 and some change. I can't remember the fractionals. And my deadlift was 591. Right, at 48 years
Moving
of age.
some weight.
A little bit.
Yeah.
In a single ply piece of compression gear, at 48 years of age, at 268 pounds.
Wow.
That
Bench press at 501. Like nobody can do that.
there are guys that like. There's a Jimmy Kolb. You got to look at him on Instagram. He benches 1,300 pounds. Yeah. I've watched him.
Never heard of so.
Yeah,
Jeez.
there are some, literally in powerlifting, there are some freaks. There are freaks of nature, right? Jimmy's not much taller than me. He's a lot wider than I am. He's got really short arms. So biomechanically, he's advantaged to press. You know, he's got a barrel chest and short arms. So his range of motion isn't long, but he's strong. He's prior Marine. And like I've watched him do an AMRAP set with 1,000 pounds. Like, and it's just like, how?
Yeah.
But you know, it's a gift. Dave Hoff, he's the #1 ranked multiply guy on the planet. His total is like 3,100 pounds, or I'd have to go on Instagram and look, but he squats an enormous amount of weight. He benches an enormous amount of weight, and he deadlifts an enormous amount of weight. And but he trained at Westside under Louis since he was a teenager, right? So he's got all of this time to develop, right? And as we get older, like, yeah, our joints change, but our muscles become more mature, like old man strength.
It's a real thing.
That's a real thing. It really is.
Yep.
So, March of 18, I get this total, and I end up being ranked. Now, granted, I'm a master's lifter, so that doesn't count as open. As a master's 2 in the 45 to, or 46 to 49, 44 to, whatever it is, it's 45 to 50, master's 2. I had the highest squat in the world, and I had the 3rd highest total in the world. Granted, there's probably only about 47 of us because of our age.
Yeah.
But still, in that shorter period of time, I had a pretty good run, and really was planning on going forward with that. There was an 800-pound squat that I had my eye on, and if I wasn't sweating my bench that day, I probably would have hit it. But I was sweating my bench because I had never touched in that shirt. So I was a little conservative. But God had other plans for me. September-ish, I had to have surgery on my armpit to clean out some stuff that happened in the service. And sometimes they'll scrape the back of your throat with an endotracheal tube. And after surgery, you have this growth hormone response in your body. Well, October, I get this little weird rough patch. Like if you could take your tongue and like reach back in your mouth and like where the hard palate, soft palate interchange is. Like I felt this little rough patch on my mouth. And I'm like, that's weird. So I kept watching it. And it got a little bigger and a little bigger, and it's slow at start. I'm like, well, that's not normal. But I had a lifter in the United Kingdom who'd come over here to compete, and his name's Lee Rutledge, and good, tremendous friend. He came over and he totaled 2,000 pounds, his first time on the platform in like 5 years. And then 2 weeks later, I'm off to Vegas with one of my lifters here, Elias Abner, and we go to Vegas, and he's at USPA World Championships, and he finishes that meet successfully. And by the time I'm in Vegas, the little teeny thing in my mouth, which was about, I don't know, a third of my fingernail, it had started to ulcer. So I had this wound in the back of my mouth that wasn't healing. And I was fairly sure that it was cancer. I mean, I smoked a lot. I mean, I quit smoking when I was 41, and that was just cigarettes. I drank. I mean, I wasn't a drinker, but I had bourbon in the house, and I had beer in the house, and, I preferred marijuana, but occasionally or if we had a pool party,
sure,
we'd throw some PBRs back. And shortly after my birthday in December, I'm sitting in the ENT clinic at the VA here in Cincinnati, and the doctor comes in, he looks at my mouth, he goes, "Yep, that's cancer." I'm like, well, okay. So we go and we get the biopsy and we figure it out, and it's a type of pharyngeal cancer that's caused by HPV virus. There's like 200 strains of HPV. Just about everybody will have or be exposed to HPV. If you've got a wart on your body anywhere, that's HPV. But there are like 16 or 18 strains that cause cancer. My ex-wife had cervical cancer and they didn't understand how she got it. Well, it was HPV.
That'll do it.
So, I met my brother-in-law is head of hematology and oncology at the Cleveland Clinic. And he had searched for the best radiation oncologist for me here. Very thankful to have the VA, because as a business owner, I don't have employees and I don't have insurance. The way that I've chose to run my business, we're a net zero profit enterprise, really. So very blessed to have the VA. And Dr. Takiar, who was the doctor that my brother-in-law found to be the best radiation oncologist in town, just so happened to draw my case. Okay. Little hinges swing big doors. And so she, we sit down and we talk about it, and she's like, I'm gonna beat you up. I'm gonna beat you up. And I'm this like tough guy, like, whatever. I can squat thousands of pounds, and I have blah, 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 ego
Right.
and pride and all this stuff. And I'm like, whatever, doc, whatever you can throw at me, I'm gonna chew it up and spit it out. And in my head, I'm like, I'm going on deployment for 7 weeks. I'll be back. Like, just hang the lights on. I'm good. Just hang on. I got this. Well, so I had 7 rounds of chemo, which isn't a lot. I had 35 rounds of radiation to my head and neck, and that's a lot. I've had the most radiation that I can have to a head and neck in a lifetime.
Wow.
So if I get any secondary cancers in my head and neck, that's not an option. Well, so we start, and the first week, no big deal. Buddy of mine got me some edibles from California, so they're medicinal grade edibles, and some, going to work with like a 50 milligram edible and then 100 milligram edible, and it didn't really do anything for the pain. It just made me feel less crappy, like I was at least upbeat, like because radiation kicks the dog snot out of you.
I heard it's terrible. Like
Slowly.
terrible. Yeah.
Slowly. Like week 1, no big deal. Week 2, kind of tired. Week 3, just, ugh, God. By week 3, I was taking 12-hour naps, 8 to 12-hour naps, working half a day. And God bless my wife for picking that up, because she was running the shop. Like the ghost of JD was just walking through the gym. But all through this, what I've been talking about, like these little teeny things have lined up, right? Like all of these things have, like I thought I had a plan. Like I was going to do this when I went to the Navy, and I was going to do this when I got out of the Navy, and I was going to, and all these things. And I was wrong about all of it. It was either a Wednesday or it's a Wednesday. It was a Wednesday. It was a Wednesday morning at like 11 something. And the whole time, Dr. Takier is like, don't look in your mouth. Don't look in your mouth. Don't look in your mouth. And I'm like, well, I've seen all kinds of stuff. I can handle it. Well, I looked in my mouth.
You shouldn't have.
No. Nope. There's like that big. You could put your finger through it. You could see the back nasal wall, right? And like Doc's brain went like out there, didn't come back. And I'm like, because they were talking about like cutting and surgery and putting a thing in and like bionic man. Of course, I'm thinking like, I'm going to be Steve Austin with a viewfinder in the back of my head, and like, this isn't going to be cool. I fell to my knees. I just started talking to God. And like, Father, I'm a horrible human being. I'm a liar. I'm a thief. I'm an adulterer. I'm a blasphemer. I've taken your name in vain. I've broken every commandment, short of murder, unless you consider like gossiping about somebody and trying to murder their character, but that's the same thing, right? So literally, I am one of the worst people that I know. And I tried to like balance the scale. You ever see Constantine, the movie? So it's like Constantine's trying to like send all these demons back to hell so he can balance out him committing suicide, because that's like the worst thing you can do. So I'm trying to balance the scale. Like I'm a crap human being, but I'm trying to be good to everybody to balance out that scale. Trying to make me feel better for being a crap person. And then I'm crying and talking and pleading, and then I said, Father, God, I don't deserve it. I don't deserve any grace. But if you could give me just a little bit of grace, just a little bit of help here, I promise that I will pick up and carry a sword and a shield in your name for the rest of my days. Now, I was on oxycodone. I was also on a medical edible. And as I've mentioned, I've smoked a fair amount of pot before, and I've been really, really high. I heard a voice in my bathroom that was in my head and behind me and in the shower curtain and the trash can, all around me all at once. Is my voice. The thought that I did not think and words that I did not speak. And that voice said, do not be afraid. You will be healed. And there's work to do.
Well.
And like, I immediately stopped crying. I'm just like, where'd that come from? Like, well, that was weird. But I mean, I literally didn't feel, I wasn't crying anymore. I didn't feel scared anymore. It just literally went away.
You went from kind of the lowest low you could have
to just, okay, hang on. Literally just turned off. Went to the gym the afternoon, whatever. The very next day, I had to go to radiation. And so in radiation, they put you on this big old platform. It's about as long as this thing is if it were straightened. And I've got this like mesh mask that they like put me in position and lock me on the machine, and they've got to like super line. It's like in the old Incredible Hulk where they're like lining up the thing on Bruce Banner's face and pointing the radiation. Normally, getting me on that machine takes like 5 minutes. The waiting room is the longest part, and then they come in, snap me in, and zzz, 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 done. I'm out, done. Right? I'm on that table for 15 minutes that day, and there's usually a little radio playing, and the speaker, the intercom system works, and like there's usually no real issue. Unless they get backed up with patients. I was laying on that table in position for 15 minutes, and it was cold in that room, and it's got that hospital clean room, betadine, nurses' uniforms, weird smell, machines.
Yeah. Yes.
Right?
Very unique smell.
Yeah. And they were having problems getting the thing turned on. Like they had to call a technician and reset it. The radio wasn't playing. It couldn't. There was like it was on, but all you heard was a little faint static. Like you couldn't hear. You couldn't dial in a radio or any station. The intercom wasn't working. Like it was crackly, right? There was interference. And the last thing I hear is, "We got it." Like it came through the intercom. "We got it. We think we got it." And I hear the machine. It's not a little machine. It's a big machine. But I hear the sequence of like the clicks and whirs and buzzes, and it's starting to do its thing. And as it's doing its warm up, the room becomes warm. And then I feel a presence come into the room from the ceiling down. This slow. The only way I can describe what it felt like was I could sense what felt like water covering the entire area of the ceiling, and it was just coming down like this, and then it touched me, and then it penetrated me, and then it went through me, and it was like tingles, and it was warm, and it was huge, and it was love. And when it hit the floor, the sequence started, and the radiation hit me, and that was the first time that I could feel the radiation hit my skin. My doctor said that that happens from time to time, and it did its 3 passes, and then that presence left the radiation suite. And I wasn't on an edible that day, right? The rest of the treatment, then that was the encounter. And then the rest of the treatment, like I didn't eat. I didn't get the stomach punch. I didn't have the feeding tube, the feeding port. I literally fasted for the rest of treatment. I lived on like a boost a day. I lost 60 pounds. I did. I talked to God a fair amount, but most of it was sleeping. And I've never been a faithful. I've never been that guy. Like I was an agnostic. Like I thought there was something greater. Didn't know what it was. Yeah. I mean, I went to Sunday school and stuff like that when I was a kid, but my parents.
Not something you were paying attention to or looking for.
No, not at all. Not at all. And when my parents divorced, like I went. Whatever, I'm going this way. And then, the pandemic happened. I went to finish treatment and everything was fine. And, and then that was March of 19. And I trained up and did a meet in December. Didn't hit the numbers that I wanted to hit. Wasn't ready. Very prideful. Very prideful. Wanted to be Northern Kentucky's Louis Simmons. Consider myself to be a pretty smart guy, but Louis also, he would scorched earth on people. Louis only cared, if I were Louis and you were you and you come into my gym, Louis wouldn't, if you couldn't produce an all-time world record for Louis didn't care. He didn't have a use for you. And that's one of the things that made Lou Lou. I never had an opportunity to train under him, but you either loved Louis or you hated him. Mm-hmm. That was kind of how Lou was. And there might have been a little bit of both, in there at the same time. I love you, but I hate you. I hate you, but I love you. And so then the pandemic happens, and my wife and I were sweating like we're going to lose the business, like everybody else who owns a small business. But for some reason, all of our clients allowed us to continue to pull dues, and they allowed me to stay open. And I was programming for here's your homework, and like do these workouts, and I was putting it out on social media and everywhere I could, like, hey guys, this is an opportunity for everybody to get healthy. I won't get into the coronavirus stuff, but I studied biology when I was in college, so there were some pieces that didn't make sense to me. I'm not a biologist, but the message that I received in my bathroom, there's work to do. There was an incident in my family that you see a lot of it now on television, or you see a lot of it now in the news. It has to do with trafficking. There's a lot more news articles about human trafficking.
Yes, right? Yes.
And so I remember,
that's something I've learned since the COVID days too. It's very disturbing.
Yeah, and it's so a member of my family had a brush with a trafficker, and I intervened. I didn't intervene physically on that guy because he wouldn't be here, but they were in a public place and they were being watched and monitored and videotaped, and I'm fairly certain that there was a snatch and grab car in the parking lot, and it could have gone really, really bad, and I just happened to be there, and so like I went into the rabbit hole of human trafficking, and
very bad one.
That I got on a soapbox and was like, I thought that was the work to do, right? So some people left the gym because I was pretty vocal about it, and I was wrong there as well. And
I'm not sure exactly what you were thinking with that, but when you see that, I had the feeling there's something. It feels like something I should do about it.
Yeah.
So to speak. Like, maybe this is it.
Yeah. And didn't know. Didn't. My job as a strength coach, my job as a trainer is to watch patterns and derive outcomes. So Patrick, if I'm watching you perform an exercise and I see how you're moving, I can tell which muscles aren't firing correctly, or where the chink in the armor is, and we got to fix this to build this, right? And so I have a tendency of putting my cart in front of my horse a lot. Well, I also put my cart in front of God's horse quite a bit, and that's pridefulness. And we're like 2021 now, summer 2021, and my very good friend Anthony Noble, who was one of my first clients at Urban, he had been released from physical therapy after having a double spiral shatter fracture of his tibia and fibula at the distal end, so it's down by the ankle. It was a compound fracture, so the bone's poking through the skin. He was at Ollie's skate park on a BMX bike and jacked up his ankle real bad.
Sounds really bad.
No, it's horrible. And the doctors were like, "You're never going to run again." And I'm like, "We're going to make you run again. We're going to have you run." So he was like my first big rehab project, and he became one of my best CrossFit athletes, and now he's a Federation world record holding power lifter. Just solid family guy. He's been a client for almost 12 years. But all this time he's like, "Hey, you got to come to church. You got to come to church. You got to come to church." And I'm like, I'm good. The gym is my church, right? Well, after all the stuff that happened, just one night in the summer, June or July, Friday night, we go to Heritage Fellowship. So Friday night, they have a service, and it's like 6 o'clock, 6:30, and I just look at my wife and I'm like, let's go to church. Just out of the blue, let's go to church. Just something just pulled me out of my chair and let's go to church. So we get there and we're listening to a sermon, and it's like, Cletty wasn't speaking, Scott was, and it was almost as if Scott was like speaking right to my heart, right? And if anybody would like to come receive, come up to the pulpit. There's an altar call. If anybody would like to come receive Jesus, if anybody would like to come start your life over again, if anybody would like to come receive healing, come up to the front. Patrick, something grabbed me under my sternum and lifted me out of my chair. And the next thing, I was squeezing my wife's hand, and I'm like trembly, and then it's like, literally I'm in the front. I let go, and then like 30 seconds later, she grabs my hand, and Anthony's right behind me. And he's like, move over to the left. And his wife, Dylan, and his little boy, Elijah, are standing right there. And so I've known them since before Elijah was born. And Elijah is, like, he's 12 now, and he's tall, just almost as tall as me. And he saw me, and we did the predator handshake, do that. He just pulls me in, I pull him in, and he's like, I love you, and I love you too. And he starts crying, I start crying, and Scott is saying something over Elijah, talking to Elijah, and then Elijah's laying on the floor. And this is all like, I've never been to a Pentecostal church before in my life, so this is all really weird and new stuff, right? And then I've just tears in my eyes, and Scott's right in front of me, and he's just like, raise your hands. So I lift my hands up, and he's saying some stuff, and I can't remember what he was saying. Some of the words, I don't even think I understood what he was saying. It might have been speaking in tongues. Again, it's the first time in this church. I mean, I went to a Baptist and to a Methodist or a Presbyterian church when I was a little kid. So, but that was when I was a little kid. Mm-hmm. And Anthony's behind me, and he's going, fall back, lay back, fall back, just fall, let go, just fall, just fall, just fall. And I'm a 50-year-old man, and I'm 250 pounds. And I'm like, one, if you don't catch me, I'm gonna hurt something, or I'm gonna land on somebody and I'm gonna hurt them. And then I just let go. And he caught me, and my back hit the ground. And when my back hit the ground on the church floor, I was back on the table in the radiation suite. The smell of that room was in my nose. The presence was around me. And I laid on that floor for a little while. And then I got up. I'm like, okay. Because I'd been a jackass from the moment in the radiation room to this moment. I had been an ass. And I'd actually gotten worse. And the suffering that I caused people. Including my wife. Especially my wife. But I was reminded, okay, all right. So we started going to church, and I started reading scripture, and a couple months later, I forgot we did a thing with the church before that, but that's neither here nor there. several months prior to this event, we were able to go and do a deadlifting exhibition, and I got to, the first time I publicly told my story to that congregation. So we're back, you know, we start going to church, and then this night in particular, Pastor Cleddy's speaking, and he calls us out, my wife and I. I don't know this man. I've met him once, right? He calls us out in the middle of a sermon. Stand down in the middle of the row. Looks at my wife. You got issues with your stomach. How do you know that? My wife has ulcerative colitis. She's battled for 30 years. How do you know that? How do you know that? And then somebody's praying over her and she's on the ground. And that night she met the Holy Spirit. She had her first encounter with the Holy Spirit. And then he looks at me and he like drops his microphone a little bit, turns his head, just stares at me, cocks his head the other way, and you've been fighting your whole life. Yep. Yep, sure have. You're going to get a download from heaven here in a little bit. Okay. You know the matrix code?
Mm-hmm.
Remember that?
Yeah,
right?
oh yeah.
So all of this tissue, my head, my neck, my upper chest, my upper back, it's real sensitive to light, vibration.
Is that after radiation and all that?
Yeah, right. So I get the matrix code literally falling down literally going down my face. And then I'm on the floor having carpet time. Didn't have an encounter with God, that was the encounter. There's a couple more. But in the history of the gym, I've had people come to the gym who have had problems. Broken bones. I had a lady with double hip replacement. I helped one of my friend's grandmothers walk again. Bill Brink came to my gym in 2017. Billy had one of the rarest diseases known to mankind. Doctor told him that he was the weakest human he'd ever met and that there was no way for him to build strength. And I told Billy we were going to make that guy eat his words.
Challenge accepted.
I had another friend, Trey, Paul Schulte, firefighter, here locally. Drinker. He called himself a fat body. Never served in the military, but he spoke like a Marine. Helped him lose weight and get healthy again. God's been sending people to me for a long time to help fix them, because it takes broken people to fix broken people, right? You're experiencing that now.
100%.
So I'm still, I'm still like half in, right? 1 foot in, 1 foot out.
Mm-hmm.
Still, I hadn't stopped smoking, but I slowed way down. One night, I took a hit off my bowl, and I got a flash of blood in my mouth. My tissue inside my mouth it's been, irradiated as well. And I went to go take another hit off that bowl, and I heard, throw it away. All of it. So I took 17 grams of pot and I threw it in the toilet. I still had some edibles in the house, and I still had like a couple of vape cartridges, but I didn't really like vapes. So I'm done. I still had stuff in the house, right? When you quit drinking, did you have a life preserver somewhere in the house, or did you quit like
I quit.
cold turkey?
Yeah, I went to a 3-day detox
Okay.
thing, so I didn't. I was so bad, like, yeah.
Right.
So yeah.
But people will do that. They'll keep a little something stashed. Right?
Yeah.
And 3 weeks later, I'd done pretty good. Like, I hadn't had any marijuana, and I was doing pretty good, and I started to sleep better. My memories were starting to come back, and my wife and I are going to church, and we get into this argument about something stupid, as they all are.
As they all are.
She's always right. All right, see, I said that on camera. They're always right. We go into service and everything's fine. We get back in the car and the argument just sat right in the car and waited. And so my temper just kept escalating. And we get to the house and I'm like, you know what? This is stupid. And I've got to relax. So I grabbed a 100 milligram edible. And then 10 minutes later, 5 minutes later, I grab another one. At 200 milligrams on board, and I haven't eaten a single thing all day. Well, except for breakfast. Well, then I'm like, I'm just going to get rid of all this stuff now. So I start getting all the little stuff, the remnants that I had stored and stashed, throwing it all out, and I find a little grinder that's got some really bright green marijuana in it.
So let's just get rid of this.
So I'll get rid of it the good way.
Yeah.
So I pack a bowl. Like, why not? There's two voices that you'll hear. One of them is not good for you. That was the one that was not good for me. Why not? Just do it. So there were 3 hits in that bowl. And on the 3rd hit, I heard, I told you not to do that. So I spent the next 3 hours outside on my knee, going inside and outside, trying to because it was cold. So I was trying to manipulate hypothermia. Like stand outside barefoot on the ground. There's a little bit of dip in the ground in the backyard, so it's even colder. So I'm just I'm getting my body starting to shiver so hard that I can regulate my heart rate, which is 165 beats a minute, trying to get it to come down. So I was nearing maximal heart rate. Then my medical brain kicks in well, you're going to have a heart attack. And I'm talking to God hey, I'm stupid, and if you take me now, I probably deserve it. So that's it, I'm done. That was the last night, right? And then the next day, I confessed to my wife that night that I have a problem with it. And then I go to the gym the next day and I confess to the 3 or 4 guys that are there. And I'm like, hey guys, I'm sorry I've been an ass for the last so many whatever because I have a problem, right? And that's one of the steps. You have to acknowledge the fact that you have a problem, and then you have to tell people in your life that you have a problem. And so building up that accountability piece. And
how did it feel kind of saying that, admitting to people, admitting to yourself? Or
twofold relief and that I was letting them down, or that I had somehow let them down. And one of the guys that I confessed to, he's a recovering opioid addict, right? So he gets it, and scaling, weed, alcohol, opioid, meth, whatever, it's all addiction. It's all that silly dopamine thing, right? I had to go through all of this stuff to really kind of anchor my walk in faith. And a weekend or 2 after that, I was reading Ephesians, written by Paul. Paul was Saul. Saul was one of the biggest persecutors of Christians in ancient times. Saul had his vision taken from him. And then 3 days later, it was restored. So I was once blind, but now I can see. That's from Paul. Paul wrote a very large part of the Bible. Okay, Corinthians, Thessalonians, Ephesians, all of these. He wrote a lot of the letters to the churches, right? Paul was a zealot. He was a military guy. I identify a lot with Paul. But I was reading Ephesians. And Ephesians, it's a very short book. It's only 5 or 6 chapters. I want to say 6. I'm still learning the word. Like, I've got a brain full of like movie quotes and lines and like lyrics, and like I can just, well, we're waiting. Like I can spit out movies, especially from like pop culture, like the 80s. I can spit out stuff, and so I'm trying to fill in, like I'm trying to Dewey Decimal System, like the word in my head. For you young viewers, the Dewey Decimal System, something we used to have in the libraries.
Yeah, you don't know what that is, do you? You know what it is?
I don't remember now, but I learned about it.
So I'm trying to memorize the word, and as I was reading Ephesians, in Ephesians 5, the tail end of Ephesians 5, it says you are to put on the daily. You put on the armor of God. You put on the breastplate of righteousness. And that's not us being righteous. That's not me being righteous. That's putting on Jesus. The helmet of salvation. The boots of steadfastness. The shield of faith. And the sword of fire, which is the word of God. Now, remember what I said back in my bathroom, that I would pick up a shield and a sword.
Yes.
And I would carry those things. So I am learning the word. A few months later, my wife and I are, gas, the latter end of 21, gas was weird, rising, or was it 22? I think it was 22. Was it last summer? The gas was really, really high. Really stupid high, right? Yeah, it was last summer. So last summer, after I confess, let me back up. After I confess, pastor gives me a mentor at church. His name's George. George was a SWIC operator. SWICs are the Navy SEALs that drive the big boats.
Oh, okay.
Okay, they don't go through dive school, but they're like the special warfare combatant craft guys. They do everything the SEALs do, except jump out of planes and go in scuba gear. And George was giving me homework. George gave me this homework. Make a list of every person that you ever hurt. Either go to them and ask for forgiveness face to face, write them a letter, or if you can't do that, pray a prayer of forgiveness. You think you're a tough guy? You think you're a tough person? Go ask people to forgive you for being a jackwagon for a long time. Man. Here's your entire truckload of humble pie. Here's a spoon. And so all the people that I could do face to face, I did. All the people that I could reach out to via, I did. Most of it was face to face. A couple people, I don't think there's anything I could ever possibly say that would right that. So I ended up saying a prayer for an hour and a half, listing people for an hour and a half. And forgiveness is not them forgiving you. It's about you forgiving you. And if they choose to accept that, if they choose to forgive you, then great. If they can't, then that's nothing that we can do to fix that. That's on him. That's for him to move that heart. We just have to let all that baggage go and then we move forward. So we did that, and church and going on, and gas gets really stupid, and we start door dashing. Because, you know, I don't know about you, but during the whole pandemic thing, I spent a lot of money on DoorDash. I'm sure a lot of people did.
For sure.
And so, well, let's go make a little bit of money. If we can make the car payment, that'll take some of the burden off the, you know, whatever. And we pick up some KFC, and then we have to take it to the Dollar General store warehouse in Walton, like a $5 25-cent tip. My wife's in the car, and we had just adopted Magnus, who's our 18-month-old Doberman, and had him in a cage. And our 14-year-old boxer, who we lost recently, she was still at the house, and obviously they weren't real happy about all that, but we had to go make some money. So we drop off the KFC in Walton, and she's grumbling like, well, we're not going to make any money. I'm like, it's fine, we'll be fine. $10 tip pops up. I have no idea how to use the DoorDash app. It's my second day. I had no idea that it'll tell you where you got to go. So you can make that decision on whether or not you're going to take it before you pick it up. But I just saw $10, and I'm like, I'm taking that money. We picked up a thing of locking lug nuts from the Walton AutoZone, and we had to take it to Warsaw. Warsaw. So we're driving 35 minutes down 42 to take these lug nuts to some guy in.
So this is part of the DoorDash app?
Yeah.
To grab something from the hardware store and run it down to
you can
them.
DoorDash anything.
Okay.
Literally anything.
Gotcha.
And so like, we're listening to music, and kind of, you know, when you were younger and you didn't really have a lot of money, but you could like take the girl in the car and just drive around, listen to music, and that was a date.
Sure.
So we're doing that, and you know, we're two older people divorcees that were building a business when we became a couple, so who had time to date? We didn't have that time, so it was a cool day. Like, the sun was out, and we're driving by the river and the barges, and the leaves are turning, and like, when I smoke, I'd get really like quiet mind. Like, I'd get into like this flow state, right? And all these really good ideas have always come to me in that state. Weird. And I'm just like, I zone out on like the water and the barge and the rays of the sun coming through the trees. And I hear, pray for Hector. There's that voice again. Then I hear it again. Pray for Hector. Did you say that? Look down at my phone. I'm delivering to Hector in Warsaw. So like we we drive past his place. Warsaw's got one stop sign, right? We drive past that, turn around to like a deserted old Quickie Mart, call him like, where are you? He's like, I'll be standing out by the road. Come back a mile. So we pull up to his house, he's standing out front. I give him his lug nuts, I complete the application or the delivery. And I say, can I ask you a question? Sure. Galen, pull in. She grumbles, just pull in, woman. So she pulls in, and I get out of the car, and Hector's, you know, I'm a pretty big dude, and he kind of steps back. I said, no, it's fine. It's fine, no big deal. I just want to ask you a question. What is it? Is there anything going on in your life that you're having trouble with? Is there anything in your life that you're struggling with? What do you mean? I mean, is somebody sick? Is one of your kids failing school? Are you going through a divorce? Are you having money problems? I don't know. Is there something going on in your life that you're struggling really hard with? Why do you ask? Like, well, man, I'm pretty sure God just told me, He didn't ask me. He told me to pray for you twice on the way here. And you know when like you get emotional or your kids get emotional and the chin starts to do a little dimple quiver thing, right? Yeah. So like that happens, and like he looks down at the ground and he starts like kicking rocks with his feet. And then he looks up at me and like tears welling in his eyes, and he said, "I'm battling prostate cancer." Whoa. Whoa. So, like, God sent me who he healed from cancer. Because the radiation did his thing, right? But I don't have a scar. I don't look like I've had cancer.
I sure don't.
I don't have any of the symptoms. I mean, I got a little dry mouth and I got a little range of motion issue with my neck. I got some really weird feeling muscles in my neck. But other than that, man, I don't have the symptoms or the side effects that they thought I would have. And they don't know why I healed the way I did. I do.
Mm-hmm. I do.
Right. And God sent me to pray over another man who was battling the same disease that I battled, that he had been praying for. And I prayed a healing prayer over him, but I couldn't, I didn't have a dry eye. I was crying and just trying to make it sound somewhat legitimate, and then like told him my story and invited him to church. And when I get back, and I told Anthony, I'm like, man, this is what God did through me. And Anthony's like, did you cure the cancer? And I'm like, I don't know.
Right.
I have no idea, man. I just did what I was told. And I've heard that voice many times. And that voice is available for all of us if we just listen. And we've heard it before. Like you're walking down a street and it's like, you don't want to go down that alley. Mm-hmm. You really shouldn't do that. When I put a 8-ball of cocaine up my nose, I don't remember hearing a voice, but I'm pretty sure you shouldn't do that. Pretty sure, made some dumb choices, made some bad decisions. But that voice has always been there guiding me, or I've been guided through my life to do certain things. Certainly made some jackwagon choices. Certainly took the back nine on a couple of those things. I was told to make strong men. And the world needs strong men right now.
More than ever in the history of mankind.
Yes. Yeah. And it's not guys my age, your age. It's guys his age. It's guys younger than him. I got kids in my gym that don't know God. I got kids in my gym that don't know the 10 Commandments. And if we're going to have leaders that are going to be morally correct leaders, I'm not talking about politicians because they all suck. But if we're going to have leaders, then we need to have leaders that have moral fiber, that can't be swayed by the dollar. Not saying we don't need rich Christians, because certainly we do.
There's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing, right? But if you put somebody in a position,
don't put your integrity in front of the dollar.
Thank you. And to be honest, man, we've kind of been asleep at the wheel.
Yes, we have.
And we've put a lot of people in positions that don't need to be there, and they are wielding their power for them, not for us. Well, I don't know the Bible. I know the barbell. Mm-hmm. The barbell has taught me many, 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 many lessons. And the things that I tell people in the gym that I've said for a long time, I find parallel in Scripture. Fear's a liar.
Yep.
You know, spending time with the Marine Corps, embrace the suck, suffer in silence. All of these things have kind of led me to what I'm doing. And then like the people that have come to the gym that I've helped with a number of things, both me and my wife. Mental illness is a conversation. Mental illness is the mastodon sitting in the room that nobody's having a conversation about. And you know, I battled depression for 20 years. Was on Zoloft for way too long. I'm finally off that garbage. We've helped people with, because that's being a trainer. It's kind of like being a real estate agent. You ever get into like therapy sessions with your clients?
Oh, I'd say that 80% of the job is being a therapist, yes. That is a huge part of it.
Because buying a house is like super stressful, right?
Very stressful.
Yeah. So that's a lot of what being a coach and a trainer is. It's that.
Yes.
So this gentleman that ended up coming to my gym about a year ago, I trained his daughter. And he was given word to get stronger. Go get stronger. And his daughter suggested that he come to my gym. And he's very similar. He's prior military, similar components to his life. He grew up in the church. But he told me that. He told me that he had been given word to get stronger. And I'm like, well, Michael, I've been given word to make strong men. There's confirmation there.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been other people that I've met, both in person and like friends that I've in social media. One person in particular, his name's Graf. He has a really cool story, but just confirmation of all this stuff. Like, and you know, when you're on your journey and you're doing something that you've never done before, you're searching for answers like, why did this happen? Why me? Why now? Make it make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Am I crazy? Well, we're not crazy. Michael sponsored me to go on this retreat. That's what
That was, I talked to you one day Friday, I guess, and then you were leaving the next day.
Yeah, Thursday.
Okay,
Thursday.
yep, Thursday.
Thursday. So it was 3 days, no phone, no watch.
That sounds freaking outstanding.
It was great. I ate so many carbs in 3 days. I ate more carbs in 3 days than I did the entire last quarter of 2022, right? But it was all men. We're in Harrison, Indiana, West Harrison, Indiana. It's a retreat, and it's 3 days getting to know God better, getting to know Jesus better, getting to know ourselves better, and really fully understanding, hopefully, our assignment in the kingdom. And it's called the Walk to Emmaus. And in my walk, because I haven't been training for like a year, I stopped training. One of the people at church prophesied over me, and like again, I got this stuff, and I'm like, I interpreted it wrong, kind of like I did in the bathroom. And you must drop all things of pride and pridefulness. It's okay. Well, I built my total on pridefulness. I built part of my gym on pridefulness. I thought I was going to be, hot skippy, bag of pork rinds, the greatest thing since sliced bread, power lifter, coach guy. So let me just step back from that and let me just try to impart wisdom. Well, this weekend was a lining up of like God showed me this is my life. This is what we've done. This is what I did in your life. This is what I did in your life because this has been my plan for you in your life. All of the things, the rain, the sun, the ups, the downs, the good times, the bad times, the suffering, the deaths, the joyful moments, all steps in the journey of my life have been to bring me to this point where I understand what I'm supposed to do. And that's to help people become strong. And strong has many, many facets to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you that the person that I was in 2020, the person that I was in 2018, in 2021, I'm not that guy anymore. I have a peace inside of me that I have never known. I have a love for people that I have never known. And that's, as men, that's a tough thing to...
I'm talking about loving yourself.
Yeah.
Talk about loving yourself with some guys drinking Miller Lights and eating wings. You know what I mean? Like, I was that guy. But when you do, what happened? You can love everybody.
Yeah.
Like, these are like our stories. Mine started January 2020. But all this. Before then, I'd kind of be sitting here like, do. But I get it. Like, I feel it. I know it.
Yeah.
Lived it. And it's a powerful thing.
It is.
Like the day when you can sit down and be like, all the bad stuff that happened, it wasn't bad. Nothing was bad. That was just what had to happen so you can get here and say it's okay.
Yep. The only reason we make it bad is because we have an emotional response to that. Certain things that you inherited from your dad, that he inherited from his dad, that he inherited from his dad, and you got this like hand-me-down, like herky-jerky toolbox of emotional dysfunction. My dad, God rest his soul, like his nickname at the country club. Now, granted, I grew up in Podunk, like Huntington, West Virginia. Like we weren't wealthy. Spring Valley Country Club. It's grown over and there's a deer population on now. But my old man would get so upset that he would take his golf clubs and just.
So
He gets so upset. They called him Whirlybird.
throwing his golf club.
Just chucked him like. And so I inherited that temper, right? And then, what does the military do? They learn how to use it. It's I think that you have to endure a very you-specific amount of trauma in your life so that you can peel back the onion that you are to get to who you really are so that you can share that with everybody else. Because when you're 19 or 20, you don't have a clue who you are. Most people don't. I didn't, and I think one of the biggest disservices that are being perpetuated on young people is like, oh, you have to have it figured out by the time you're 21.
No.
You got to know exactly what, you got to have your life plan in order by the time you're 22.
When you're 18, you got to pick the major you want.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
Figure
so you
it
can
out.
have that job the rest of your life. Nobody knows.
Sit in that box for 40 hours a week and be unhappy.
But I wrote right here, why does it have to get so bad? For me, and it's everybody. It's usually across the board.
Yes.
It's some very, very huge traumatic event.
Yes.
Like, it had to get so freaking bad for me and so uncomfortable. Like, I'm not suicidal, but I understood how people got that thought. I understood it. But it has to get that bad before we do anything. How can we get people to maybe do something before it gets so bad?
It's a good question.
That's the question that's been on my mind for a while.
How do you get people? Well,
These people don't change their diet. They don't get healthy till they're on 3 blood pressure pills. You can go on about a million different things.
the symptoms are all of those things. It's a pill, it's a food, it's a drink, it's a this, it's a that. What we're really talking about is people are trying to empty, they're trying to fill up an emptiness, that they have inside, right? And despite what people believe all of these things, but this isn't who I am. That meat suit isn't who you are. We are a spiritual being inside of a meat suit. We are supposed to be connected. We are connected to each other. If you look at quantum physics, torrid energy field, torrid, starts with a T. There, we have an energy that we emit as a physical being, and if you get close enough, it connects. You get a bunch of people together, you can feel it. Mm-hmm. You can feel it in congregation.
Yep.
You can feel it in a panicked crowd. You can feel it at the stadium.
You can feel the consciousness of the group.
You sure can.
Yes.
Absolutely. Right? There's that energy. There's darker energy. There's negative energy. There's darkness. And that's all around us as well. I think, how do we answer that question? How do we help people recognize that we're all connected? Each and every one of us?
I think you hear a lot of people talking about it, but the consciousness of our country, of the globe is changing.
It is.
It is. There's a thing going on right now.
It is.
Like me meeting you.
Yeah.
It's, say if it was supposed to happen, I don't know, but we're sitting here for a reason, I think.
I agree. I think, like, I've noticed personally, it feels like things have slowed down a little bit. A couple of years ago, it was really fast.
Feels calmer.
Feels a little calmer. I agree with you. I think that there is a consciousness shift going on.
Yes.
And you can call that ascension. You can call that Christ consciousness. You can call that good kicking evil's butt. If you read Revelation and you look at the world right now, things line up, pretty frighteningly line up. And what a time for all of us to be alive right now in this age.
I truly believe that we are living in we're very lucky to be sitting here at this day with what we're going to see.
And we haven't even seen the bad part yet. The bad part's coming.
But again, look how bad it has to get in order for something to change.
You can't appreciate the light until you see darkness.
And that's true. Just my own personal journey. It was really, 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 really dark. It was almost lights out dark.
Me too. Me too. And I thank my wife for that. Because if she hadn't, we wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation. Right?
Very thankful for her.
Me too. But think about all of the good that you can do going through the things that you went through. You know, our society is perpetuated with, especially men, and this comes from the military. Got a problem? Go sit in a corner and drink it away. Forget about it. Right? You got a problem? Go sit in the corner and smoke it away. Forget about it.
Mm-hmm.
Go pop some pills. Take a Xanax or two, right? Or an Ativan or whatever.
Yep, 100%.
It's distract, escape, fill up the void with the wrong
With
things.
anything but looking at it.
Yes.
Because that was exactly when, so my problem was anxiety, some depression, this or that. There was no major traumatic events in my life. That's why I would get frustrated, right? Like, I had a great life. But this was still there, and I would drink it away. And then to the point where I was drinking it away every day, sometimes 20 hours of the day. But take that away, so that crutch is gone. That dopamine fix is gone. That blank my mind is gone. So now that's left as me, and we're going to have to figure some shit out at this point.
Yep.
Because I can't go back to that.
Yep. Right.
And it was miserable.
Yep.
And I knew there was some way to be happy again, and it's taken 3 years, and I'm getting there.
You are.
But it takes a while.
And you're not.
But it's all those dopamine fixes that just cover it up to stop you from doing what you need to do.
Yeah.
Again, why did it have to get so bad? I wish I could have done this before, but it didn't. And it was for a reason.
It wasn't your plan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my plans have not been working out very well
They
at
won't.
all.
And they won't. You know,
At all.
it's we are all children of God. God designed a plan for each and every one of us. We're not to know what that is.
Yep.
If you were told what you were to do with your life, think about the reverse psychology on how that works with your kids. You would have run the other way. You would have done completely the opposite thing.
Uh-huh.
You wouldn't have fulfilled that thing, that destiny, that role. What I have learned is that, you ever seen that poem, Footprints?
Yeah, footprints in the sand?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good.
There's two sets of footprints walking, and then all of a sudden there's just one set of footprints walking. Like the good, the bad, the whole thing, all the bad, all the dark, all the stuff in our lives. Realize that God is with you every single day, every moment of your life, and He loves you. 100%. Mm-hmm. He loves you. He loves us so much that He sent His Son to die on the cross for our sins. Every single bad thing that I've ever done in my entire life and will do, because I am a sinner.
You got a lot of life left.
Yeah,
We're not going to be perfect by any
I got
means.
sins that I haven't even committed yet. I'm trying to avoid that.
Yeah.
I'm learning to be better in my actions and my
Yes.
reactions and my habits, so that I don't do that. You know, like I'm a sailor. Foul-mouthed sailor. You ever hear that before?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Cuss like a
well,
sailor. Cuss like a
yeah,
sailor.
yeah. I can create masterpiece with cuss words.
That's pretty good, too.
I stopped playing Call of Duty because I can't, that makes me switch back to that, you know? So, I guess the void that we're trying to fill is the disconnect that we have with our spiritual selves.
Mm-hmm.
Our mental strength and our physical strength and our spiritual strength are all very much intertwined in who we really are.
Well, the link between psychology and spirituality, it's either the same or it's a very thin veil separating them.
I think that say like the original scientists, they were all creationists. They all believed that God created everything. And soon after, there's been this separation. That science is like
Of the church and science?
just separating,
psychology.
separating that, like science just trying to explain why God doesn't exist. And it started out that the first scientists were explaining things why God does exist. And if you look at like, if you cross-section our DNA, the letters of God's name, Yahweh, are in our DNA. A painter puts his signature on his masterpiece, right?
Mm-hmm.
How can you not look at a newborn baby and see God? The miracle of creation. How can you not look at a sunset or a sunrise and go, how did the light that you are now in was the very first thing that God did. Genesis chapter 1.
Mm-hmm.
God said, let there be light. And the light separated from the darkness. So really, all we're trying to do is connect with God and find the light.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the journey of life.
And life takes us away from that.
It
We
does.
get this breakup. This person did this. We
Yep.
get in a fight. We
Yep.
get sick. We pile
Somebody
on
dies.
self-defense.
Sure,
We
absolutely.
just pile on self-defense, self-defense,
Excuses,
self-defense.
excuses.
So now it's been like, I've gone through some massive changes, but I haven't changed. I'm just getting rid of the bullshit. I'm just getting back to who I was when I was that baby, when it was back to your natural state, so to speak. And it's fun.
It is.
It's scary and it's hard, but it's fun.
When I was a child, I was a weepy child. Like, not weepy, but a sunrise would make me cry. A song would make me cry.
So, yeah.
Drawn to, a tear would fall if I was moved by something. And my dad was the, dry it up.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah.
I'll give you something to cry about if you. God love you. And now I know. Like there was a couple of moments when I was speaking that I fought back some tears. But every time the Holy Spirit touches me, I get weepy.
Yeah.
Like have you ever had the Holy Spirit touch you? Have you ever experienced the Holy Spirit?
And I've had a lot of I don't think the way you're talking, no, but I've had some communication, so to speak, signs.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You ever felt like anxiety, electricity, prickly all over your body and you just don't understand why?
I haven't had that. I was really, really anxious one night and I was praying and I felt like I got a giant hug and I stopped worrying about everything. That kind of thing.
That's the Holy Spirit, brother.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And sure, there are going to be people that don't believe, and I was there. I was there a little bit. Like, I didn't know whether God was a giant pinball machine or a space beanbag or whatever. I pray for those people that need it the most, and I also pray for those people that think they need it the least. Because it's scary times, and according to Scripture, this is also a time when a lot of people are going to leave, that are going to turn away from the face of God. And I'm not praying for people because I am overly righteous. I am the furthest thing from
That's
that.
me as well.
I'm the furthest thing from righteousness. I'm the furthest thing from perfect. I still have trouble with, what did I do to deserve what happened to me?
Mm-hmm.
Only that I know that there is work to do,
Yep.
and I want to see you and everybody else that I know. I want to see you guys. I want to have a continued relationship when we leave this physical body and go on into the next life. I want to see all of my friends in heaven. I don't want anybody to spend eternity in hell, in eternal damnation. And it's literally that simple. And being able to, going on this retreat and listening to these men talk about their stories and the things that they've done. It doesn't matter when you invite Jesus into your life. It just matters that you do.
Mm-hmm.
One of the guys that was telling his story, he was a volunteer pastor at a hospital, and this guy is a massive COPD patient, could barely breathe. And with his dying breaths, he accepted Jesus as his Lord and Savior. There's a parable. The gentleman owned a field and he was hiring laborers. In the beginning of the morning, he hired a couple people and he paid them their wage, or promised them a day's wage. And throughout the day, he kept hiring other workers and giving them the same wage. At the end of the night, he hired another guy, paid him the same wage. Well, the guy that was hired first got upset. How can you pay him the same wage as you paid me? Well, you agreed to it, for one. That parable right there of, it doesn't matter when you take the agreement, right? Monday, over this 3-day thing where God showed me who I am in the kingdom. Monday, I'm in my gym, personal training clients. Because we do all that. You know, we got power lifters and we got Olympic weightlifting and personal training clients and nutritional clients and a great gym dog. And
Yeah, we got all your bases covered there.
We sure
so
do.
whatever somebody's looking for.
Nutrition and stretching and like myofascial adjustment. I can scrape you. I mean, I'm not licensed, but I know what I'm doing. We don't charge for that. That's included in the membership price. But this right across from my gym, there's these woods, and there's some homeless people that live there.
Yep.
And they've loitered on the property, and a couple of them have tried to get into some other places in the warehouse, and not in my gym or not my space. But there's this little girl, I've never seen her before. She's sitting right out on this concrete block.
Like little girl, like a kid?
Like a teenager.
Okay.
And then one client leaves, another client comes in, we're moving different exercises, and I see her move to the front of the building. She sits right out in front next to my car on the grass. And my first reaction was, I'm gonna go kick her off the property. And then I thought, why don't I just go talk to her? So I get out there and I talk to her. Her name's Olivia. She just turned 18. Olivia's mom has a boyfriend that was trying to sexualize Olivia. And Olivia didn't want anything to do with that, which caused an argument. And Olivia's mom kicked her out of the house because of that. Eventually her dad showed up. Her dad also lives off the grid, so to speak. But I told Olivia right then, I just started talking to her about her life. And, well, actually, I started talking to her about my life. Like, hey, have you ever done anything wrong? Yeah. You ever did anything that you're ashamed of? Yeah.
Listen to this shit.
Listen to this.
Yeah.
Check out this.
Mm-hmm.
Are you depressed? Do you feel empty? Yeah. Me too. Used to. What changed? Well, do you believe in God? Well, I believe there's something. I said, there is, and that's God. And God's got a son named Jesus. And Jesus came to earth as a man, and he died for you on the cross. He died a horrible death. And after 3 days, he was resurrected, and he was ascended to heaven. He died for your sins, all those bad things that you did. She just looked down. I said, you know what? I'm not saying you did bad things. I did bad things. I did so many bad things. I've done more bad things than you have. But Jesus accepted me. He forgave me. And I asked him to come into my heart and heal me, and he did. And she said, how can that happen for me? I said, it's really easy. There's good news. I just told you the good news. Give me your hand. And I brought my partner, the guy that I would know, my partner, I brought my training client out with me who's had a drug problem, who's been on Skid Row, who's been on the down and outs, who's had problems, who's been to jail. And we grabbed hands, and her dad was there, and I said a prayer, and I said, just repeat after me. And I said, speak it with your mouth and mean it with your heart. And she asked for forgiveness, and she asked Jesus to be her Lord and Savior. And I said, amen. And then she was like, that's so strange. And I said, what? And she said, it felt like something was just pulled out from my body. And I said, well, the good news is that you've accepted Jesus as your Lord and Savior because he died for you on the cross. The bad news is that now you have to pick up your cross and you have to die for him. So the part that you're in right now, you, Patrick, in your life, you are dying to your old self to get back to who you are, who God created you to be. Because the gifts that you have are for the good of the kingdom. The fear of speaking is actually your gift. Your gift is to speak. Your gift is to work with people and use your voice. Your gift of connection with people. Instantly connect with people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you will have breadcrumbs of instruction along the way that will guide you as long as you listen. And if you listen, everything will be revealed. You know, I'm a pretty sciencey guy. And I used to think all the science. And now I think science is a bunch of crap, to be honest. I mean,
quantum physics is explaining the Bible.
It is. And God is beyond time. God is beyond matter. God is in
the whole quantum
God is
model
quantum.
of science that's coming out now.
Yes.
Yep.
And we are part of that. And the quantum theory says that everything is connected to everything is connected to everything, right?
Yep.
And our spirit in us is from God. It is the Holy Spirit inside us. That is our connection to God. When I came off of Zoloft, it was like a colander came off my head, and I was even more connected. And all of these stuff just dumped into my head. That bit about me being like weepy and like being moved by the Spirit for my entire life, like that came back in that moment. I'm on a Zoom call with a men's group that I lead called the Iron Disciples, iron sharpening iron.
Yeah.
And like I immediately started crying, and they're like, "What's wrong?" And I'm like, "I just had this moment, you know."
Yeah.
And it's we're seeing the world be changed. We're seeing the Spirit of God move across the face of the planet. The Ashbury revival.
Yeah, that was cool.
It was super cool.
Yeah.
And then it spread to
everywhere. I don't know, say everywhere, but a lot of where.
I mean, multiple universities, and then revival broke out in Israel.
Yeah.
And revivals broken out in Ukraine, and revivals broken out in Africa. And I think that the millennials, I think that the 15-year-olds, the teenagers and up, the 15s to 20-somethings, I think they're going to have the greatest experience of their life, because they've grown up with this technology. They've grown up with all this crap, and they've realized way sooner than we did that there's nothing there. There's nothing there.
They've been calling bullshit for a while.
Yeah.
Yep. I have a 17-year-old stepdaughter, and it's cool talking to her. She's different. When I was 17, I was not thinking what she's thinking about, and it's good.
Yeah.
And I used to think that I felt bad for my boys. Like, what kind of world is this? Well, they're 12 and 8, and then they're in the perfect spot, I think. We just got to do what we got to do to help what we can.
And that starts with us as individuals.
Yep.
And then our actions reflect out in the quantum way, in the spiritual way.
Well, it's the quantum way. Quit reaching out here to find stuff to make you happy, to make you fulfilled. If you do it in here,
be happy.
It comes out, and
you're happy.
Yeah.
They're happy. Everyone's happy.
Everybody happy.
Yeah.
I can't believe I'm talking about this stuff.
Yeah.
Well, sir, this has been a great conversation. I think we could probably talk all night, but let's wrap it up for now. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
It's been a great talk.
Thank you.
Very happy I got to meet you. And
Likewise.